Richard says, for every minute late drink, for any mention of Marga drink, any mention of Gaza or UK. Oh shit, it's starting. Of course, they've got the
Mr. Speaker,
deaf girl.
President's cabinet.
Right, so 11 minutes, 20 seconds late. Really, like, terrible, background, like, low-pitched background noise, though. Finish your drink if Clarence Thomas calls Biden a cracker. I don't think Clarence Thomas is there, sadly. Wish he would, though. He just says, should we drink if Biden shows up dead? Yeah, Trump is just doing tweets, sadly. Maxine Waters, he says, very nice woman, even though she's constantly saying she wants to beat up or kill people on the opposite side of the aisle. If I ever said that, they would call me insurrectionist and all hell would break out, Trump says. I do recognize a few cabinet members there.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
He's making his way slowly into the room. You can tell who's on what side by how rapidly the hands are moving. Yeah, look down here. On the bottom right there. That's, there's a Trump hat. MAGA hat. I reckon that's Marjorie Taylor Greene. Kinda looks like her. Could be anyone, though. Yeah, Britannia. Exactly that one, black tear, yeah. So Biden was about 17 and a half minutes late. Mr. Malone says, wooing and whistling for the president, we're not doing decorum anymore. Well, I don't know. I don't think that's the part that matters the most. When you're deeply unpopular in the polls, and yet a room full of the aristocracy is treating you like God walking upon the earth, I think that's when you know you're doing something wrong. Also, did you see the nose on that woman on the right? Someone got through. So here's what Trump is saying about it so far. Crooked Joe is making his way to the chamber, very disrespectful to some, not good. Joe Manchin had it made, was one of the most popular politicians in America, but then he, as he usually does, blew it. He approved the Inflation Reduction Act and he was toast, not recoverable. Thankfully, we won't have to be looking at Rhino Mitt Romney much longer, says Trump. Based Trump signaling he's going to have Mitt Romney killed. Trump says they are really late, very disrespectful to our country. I think you could make that argument, but I'm not sure what the norm is for that. The aristocracy want him. Chat, the aristocracy. This is the only crowd he can get to say this for him. Not the only, but he is definitely a long way down in the polls. How many of these politicians got their pay raised for saying 4 more years? It's a sign of loyalty. In an illegitimate rulership, loyalty of the elite, of the key supporters, is everything. I recognize some of these vampires. Anything could happen. They've somehow managed to keep Biden compos mentis for all these speeches, with only a few snafus of messing up his speaking. But anything could happen.
Oh, has it not started yet?
If I were smart, I'd go home now.
Oh, it skipped a bit there. It wasn't me.
Speaker, Madam Vice President, members of Congress, my fellow Americans. In January 1941,
No, it's 2024, Biden.
came to this chamber to speak to the nation, and he said, I address you at a moment unprecedented in the history of the Union. Hitler was on the march. War was raging in Europe. President Roosevelt's purpose was to wake up Congress and alert the American people that this was no ordinary time. Freedom and democracy were under assault in the world. Tonight, I come to this same chamber to address the nation.
Yeah, but you're the one doing it now.
We who face an unprecedented moment in the history of the Union. And yes, my purpose tonight is to wake up the Congress and alert the American people that this is no ordinary moment either. Not since President Lincoln and the Civil War have freedom and democracy been under assault at home as they are today.
Ironic. Many would argue Lincoln was the one doing the assault.
Freedom and democracy are under attack both at home and overseas at the very same time.
Oh no. Here's Israel.
Putin of Russia is on the march, invading Ukraine, and sowing chaos throughout Europe and beyond.
Our top priority, this foreign nation.
Thinks Putin will stop at Ukraine. I assure you he will not.
I think he will, actually. He's captured the territories he wants. I don't think he's going further. Is there any evidence of that? Like, if he attacks any other NATO country, it's not going to go well for him.
If we stand with Ukraine and provide,
this is just an excuse to send money into Ukraine, which just goes missing. Goes missing. I wonder where it could be.
That is all. That is all Ukraine is asking. They're not asking for American soldiers. In fact, there are no American soldiers at war in Ukraine, and I'm determined to keep it that way. But now, world leadership.
Don't know why it skips like that.
Wasn't long ago when a Republican president named Ronald Reagan thundered, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall."
Uh-oh. He's going to try and tear down Trump's wall. Thing is, tear down this wall was against socialism, not against borders.
The president tells Putin, quote, "Do whatever the hell you want." That's a quote. A former president actually said that.
Oh, look, it's about Trump.
Going down to a Russian leader. I think it's outrageous, it's dangerous, and it's unacceptable.
Trump said that it would never have happened and he could solve it in one day, and I think he's right. So this is just bullshit from Biden. You can see a bunch of Republicans just not cheering because they know it's fucking bullshit.
As a founding member of NATO, the military alliance of democratic nations, created after World War II to prevent war and keep the peace. And today,
yeah, not going so well.
Made NATO stronger than ever. Welcomed Finland to the alliance last year. And just this morning, Sweden officially joined, and their minister is here tonight. Can they stand up?
Not certain that's a good idea. Not sure that's a good idea. I guess it depends who's in charge of the US, though. Yeah, not much about the US in this speech.
Mr. Prime Minister, welcome to NATO, the strongest military alliance the world has ever seen. I say this to Congress.
The weakest leader the world has ever seen.
Send me a bipartisan national security.
You're not standing up to Putin. Putin is your excuse for a forever war that allows you to launder money back to politicians for supporting sending taxpayers' money there in the first place. Most of it doesn't go to the war, and when it does, it's just getting local Ukrainians killed for land that isn't really theirs, that has already been captured. Total waste.
To do us harm. My message to President Putin, who I've known for a long time, is simple. We will not walk away.
We will not stop throwing billions and billions at the problem until hundreds of thousands of people are dead who wouldn't have been if Trump was in office.
I will not bow down.
Jesus, I'm sorry she can clap.
In a literal sense, history is watching. History is watching. Just like history watched 3 years ago on January 6th. When insurrectionists stormed this very Capitol and placed
in response to you rigging the election.
Many of you are here on that darkest of days.
It wasn't an insurrection either, but that's obvious.
The insurrectionists were not patriots. They'd come to stop the peaceful transfer.
No, they were feds.
Overturn the will of the people. January 6th lies about the 2020 election and the plots to steal the election posed a gravest threat to U.S. democracy.
And no, stealing the election's the bigger threat than talking about it.
America stood.
Yeah, they failed to get people to recognize the election was rigged. Don't be too overconfident in doing it again, Biden. You might not like the result.
And democracy prevailed.
No, democracy was stolen on that day. Democracy will prevail in 2024 if you fail to rig it.
My predecessor and some of you here seek to bury...
It's remarkable that people on our side can fall for this. People who don't like democracy can be like, whoa, Biden's saying he's for democracy, therefore democracy must be bad.
Here's the simple truth. You can't love your country only when you win.
Well, that's what you're talking about, though, Biden. I mean, I don't think Biden or anyone on his side loves their country anyway, regardless the time. They love what it can do for them personally. But if you did rig the election, Biden, if your people rigged the election, the response from the right was correct.
Being elected to office,
You weren't
I
elected,
ask all of you
Biden.
without regard to party, to join together and defend democracy. Remember your oath of office is defending against all threats, foreign and domestic.
You are the biggest threat right now, Biden. You and your people.
Respect free and fair elections. Restore trust in our institutions.
How about voter ID then?
Make clear political violence has absolutely no place
How
in
about
America.
clearing those voter rolls, Biden? How about getting rid of computerized voting? How about getting rid of everyone can do mail-in voting? How about getting rid of all these methods which are well known to create fraud? That's a free and fair election, but no, you want to amplify those things. Isn't that strange?
We're watching. Your children and grandchildren will read about this day and what we do. History is watching another assault on freedom. Joining us tonight is Latoya Beasley, a social worker from Birmingham, Alabama. 14 months ago, she and her husband welcomed a baby girl thanks to the miracle of IVF. She scheduled treatments to have that second child. The Alabama Supreme Court shut down IVF treatments across the state, unleashed by a Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade. She was told her dream would have to wait.
States' rights.
What her family had got through should never have happened.
If she's wealthy enough to be in that room right now, she's wealthy enough to go to a state where they allow it.
Across the aisle, don't keep this waiting any longer.
Why don't you help her to go to a state where they allow it, rather than complaining that a state made that choice? I think banning IVF is a little silly. I did have a story on that a while ago, but whatever. That's the state's choice, whether I agree or not.
Like most Americans, I believe Roe v. Wade got it right. I thank Vice President
It was
Harris
just
for
bad law. It shouldn't have been instantiated that way.
There's so much more. He's the reason it was overturned, and he brags about it. Look at the chaos that has resulted. Join
What,
us tonight is
the
Kate
chaos
Fox,
your side's created in
wife
response?
and mother from Dallas.
That's not an argument against it.
Pregnant again and had a fetus of a fatal condition. Her doctor told Kate that her own life and her ability to have children in the future were at risk if she didn't act.
Drink.
Because Texas law banned her ability to act, Kate and her husband had to leave the state to get what she needed. What her family got through should have never happened as well.
Well, she still had the option to.
And too many others.
It's really
Our
not
state
that
law
bad.
banning the freedom to choose.
I disagree with the state laws that say that for the health of the mother, you can't. I'm not sure if Texas even has that, though.
To get the treatment they need. Many of you in this chamber and my predecessor are promising to pass a national ban on reproductive freedom. My God, what freedom else would you take away? Look,
That was
the
amateurish.
decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court majority wrote the following, and with all due respect, justices, women are not without electoral power. Electoral or political power. You're about to realize just how much you're right about that.
Biden has just threatened the Supreme Court on the behalf of women. They're not elected. They don't have to appeal to the people, they just have to make the right decision, and it was, legally speaking, the right decision. Also, yeah, where did Trump say he wants to ban abortion federally? I didn't hear Joe say that.
About overturning Roe v. Wade,
But he didn't say
have no
that.
clue about the power of women. But they found out when reproductive freedom was on the ballot. We won in 2022 and 2020, and we'll win again in 2024.
You didn't win in 2022. Uh-oh, Biden's coughing. Oh God, it's AOC.
If you, the American people, send me a Congress that supports the right to choose, I promise you, I'll restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land again.
Biden, this really isn't the big deal. This really isn't the problem that needs to be solved. This is a state's matter.
Folks,
Federal matter is the border.
I cannot go back. I'm here tonight to show what I believe is the way forward, because I know how far we come. 4 years ago next week, before I came to office, the country was hit by the worst pandemic and the worst economic crisis in a century. Remember the fear? record losses.
You guys spread the fear.
The spikes in crime and the murder rate, raging virus.
You spread that too.
Took more than 1 million American lives of loved ones, millions.
Those stats are cooked.
A mental health crisis of isolation and loneliness. A president, my predecessor.
That was again due to the lockdowns.
Basic presidential duty that he owes to American people, the duty to care. I think that's unforgivable. I came to office determined to get us through one of the toughest periods in the nation's history. We have. It doesn't make news in 1,000 cities and towns. The American people are writing the greatest comeback story never told.
Coming back from that shouldn't be difficult because the virus was over by the time you got to office, pretty much. It was just lingering effects left. Trump weathered the actual storm, and he could have done it better. But he did it right.
Is building the future of American possibilities, building an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down.
They always say that, but I'm not sure they know what it means.
To make sure everyone has a fair shot. We leave no one behind. The pandemic.
I've seen some data that indicates they still haven't recovered the jobs from before the pandemic.
Are now being used to beat cancer.
Ooh. mRNA being used for other purposes is a big risk because we know how dangerous the vaccines are themselves. People have been suffering a lot from them.
That's what America does.
I don't believe you at all. You mean the vaccines that Trump helped to support, but he didn't know what they were then. But now we do. We know that they're dangerous. We know that the tech is unpredictable, and you're saying it'll beat cancer, a very common disease. I'm very concerned about that narrative.
15 million new jobs in just 3 years. A record. A record.
What about the trillions added to the national debt? That's not the envy of the world. I don't think any nation wants that. If you stop counting things as crimes, the crime rate goes down.
They're starting small businesses, and each one is a literal act of hope.
Same thing with unemployment.
With historic job growth and small business growth for Black and Hispanics and Asian Americans.
Who are voting for Trump.
100,000 new manufacturing jobs in America and counting.
Are they new, Biden? Are they actually new?
Where is it written we can't be the manufacturing capital of the world? We are, we will.
Not if you keep letting China do it.
Health insurance today. More people have health insurance today than ever before.
That's not necessarily a good thing, Biden.
The wealth gap is as small as it's been in 20 years. Wages keep going up, inflation keeps coming down.
The wealth gap. I don't believe you. The wealth gap is small.
In the world and tending lower. The landing is and will be soft. And now, instead of importing foreign products and exporting American jobs, we're exporting American products and creating American jobs.
Okay, that's Trump's position that you've copied from him from 4 years ago, that he actually did, and you're just saying it. But it's interesting you're saying it.
It takes time, but the American people are beginning to feel it. Consumer studies show
No, they're
consumer
not.
confidence is soaring.
No, I don't think they do.
America has been the law of the land since the 1930s. Past administrations, including my predecessor, including some Democrats as well in the past, failed to buy American. Not anymore.
I don't believe you, Joe.
Federal projects that you fund, like helping build American roads, bridges, and highways, will be made with American products and built by American workers.
Right, so only the state's projects are going to be buying American. What about the problems with the private sector, Joe, that tariffs could help with? Because now is a good time for that to be done.
Chips and Science Act.
It's like what Trump was
The
doing.
United States is investing more in research and development than ever before. During the pandemic, a shortage of semiconductors, chips, that drove up the price of everything from cell phones to automobiles. And by the way, we invented those chips right here in America. Well, instead of having to import them, private companies are now investing billions of dollars to build new chip factories here in America, creating tens of thousands of jobs. Many of those
That's
jobs,
good if so, but I don't think it's due to your economy, Joe.
require a college degree. In fact, my policies have attracted $650 billion in private sector investment in clean energy, advanced manufacturing, creating tens of
How much of that
thousands
was
jobs
subsidized?
here in America.
And how much is that compared to what Trump secured? And how cooked are your numbers? And how much of that is cronyism, etc., etc.?
And thanks to our bipartisan infrastructure law, 46,000 new projects have been announced all across your communities. And by the way, I noticed some of you strongly voted against it, or they're cheering on that money coming in. I like it.
I have no idea what he said there.
I'm with you. If any of you don't want that money in your district, just let me know. Modernizing our roads and bridges, ports and airports, public transit systems. Removing poisonous lead pipes so every child can drink clean water.
Where are there lead pipes in the US?
Providing affordable high-speed internet for every American, no matter where you live, urban, suburban, or rural communities, in red states and blue states. Record investments in tribal communities. Because of my investment in family farms.
The applause sign came on too early.
Because I invested in family farms led by my Secretary of Agriculture, who knows more about this than anybody I know. We're better able to stay in the family for those farms and their children and grandchildren won't have to leave home to make a living. It's transformative. The great comeback story is Belvedere, Illinois, home to an auto plant for nearly 60 years. Before I came to office, the plant was on its way to shutting down. Thousands of workers feared for their livelihoods. Hope was fading. Then I was elected to office, and we raised the Belvedere repeatedly with auto companies, knowing unions would make all the difference. The UAW worked like hell to keep the plant open and get these jobs back, and together we succeeded.
I wonder what the real story there is.
Shutting down, auto factories reopening, a new state-of-the-art battery factories being built to power those cars there at the same.
That sounds good, but I wonder what the real story there is. The thing is, Biden, you could make that happen just for this speech. Just with a few places, just so you can claim it. So I wonder why that actually happened.
Instead of your town being left behind, your community is moving forward again. Because instead of watching auto jobs of the future go overseas, 4,000 union jobs with higher wages are building the future in Belvedere right here in America.
It is interesting that he's taking up this, like, American localism economy stuff. This, like, national pride thing, America first thing, because that's Trump policy.
A great friend and a great labor leader. Sean, where are you? Stand up.
Democrats were closing it because of COVID. Wow.
And Dawn Sims, a third-generation worker, UAW worker at Belvedere. Sean, I was proud to be the first president to stand on the picket line, and today, Dawn has a good job in her hometown, providing stability for her family and pride and dignity as well. Showing once again, Wall Street didn't build America. They're not bad guys. They didn't build it, though. The middle class built the country, and unions built the middle class.
Wouldn't put quite so much favor on unions, but favoring the middle class is an easy win to say.
When America gets knocked down, we get back up. We keep going.
Again, easy to say.
That's you, the American people.
No, this is the aristocracy, Joe.
America's coming back. It's because of you our future is brighter. It's because of you that tonight we can proudly say the state of our union is strong and getting stronger.
Well, it's about to, when Trump gets elected. They do, oh God. Half of room claps for man who won't last another 1 year to be rigged in for another 4.
That we can build together. A future where the days of trickle-down economics are over, and the wealthy and the biggest corporations...
Now there is no economics at all.
And by the way, I understand corporations. I come from a state that has more corporations invested than every one of your states in the United States combined. And I represented it for 36 years. I'm not anti-corporation, but I grew up in a home where trickle-down economics didn't put much on my dad's kitchen table. That's why I determined to turn things around so middle class does well.
Biden coming out against the Uniparty here.
And the wealthy still do very well. We all do well. And there's more to do to make sure you're feeling the benefits of all we're doing. Americans pay more for prescription drugs than anywhere in the world.
Yeah, because of government distortions on the market by forcing people to buy insurance. And you were lauding them about the mRNA vaccines a few minutes ago, but now...
Well, I proposed and signed, not one of you Republican buddies voted for it. We finally beat Big Pharma. Instead of paying $400 a month or thereabouts for insulin with diabetes, and it only costs $10 to make.
And what was the downside?
Paid $35 a month now and still make a healthy profit.
What was the downside of that bill, Joe? Were you doing manual price controls? Were you giving the government too much power? Did you say all Republicans must be cooked in a furnace in response? Because there's always something.
$35 a month for every American who needs it. Everyone.
If that was the policy on its own, maybe they wouldn't have opposed it, but I'm sure there was something else to it. Same thing with the border bill. He'll mention it today. He'll mention the Republicans failed to act with me on the border. He'll say it, but it's not true. His quote-unquote border bill would have given him the power to make sure it was open forever.
Just like the VA is able to do for veterans. That's not just saving seniors money. It's saving taxpayers money. We cut the federal deficit by 160.
Why is he wearing a mask? Why is he wearing a mask? Why the fuck is he wearing a mask? Why?
You no longer have to pay those exorbitant prices to Big Pharma. This year, Medicare is negotiating lower prices for some of the costliest drugs on the market that treat everything from heart disease to arthritis. It's now time to go further and give Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices for 500 different drugs over the next decade. They're making a lot of
Joe is an expert on drugs that help keep you alive, after all. Although he's forgotten most of the things that his advisors say.
Will not only save lives, it will save taxpayers another $200 billion.
Which we'll immediately take from you with high taxes.
Total prescription drug costs for seniors on Medicare at $2,000 a year. Even for expensive cancer drugs that cost $10,000, $12,000, $15,000. I want to cap prescription drug costs at $2,000 a year for everyone.
How about you just heal the market so you don't have to cap it? Just get government money out of it. Use price control. Yeah, it's not a good idea.
Whenever you want to get in Air Force One and fly to Toronto, Berlin, Moscow.
Giving government control to control prices in the pharmaceutical company just gives the biggest pharmaceutical companies the control to control the prices of their competitors.
Same drug, same place. Folks.
Yeah, because they don't have as much government fuckery.
The old Obamacare is still a very big deal.
Yeah, Obamacare's what's caused it, I expect. So, you discover, oh, Germany doesn't have this problem. They also don't have Obamacare, but Obamacare's great! I wonder if there could be a correlation.
Can no longer be denied health insurance because of pre-existing condition. But my predecessor, and many in this chamber, want to take this prescription drug away by repealing Affordable Care Act.
They want to make it so that people are not forced to pay for insurance. Such a stupid policy. It's so obviously stupid.
Will stop you again. In fact, they enacted tax credits of $800 per person per year, reduce health care costs for millions of working families. That tax credit expires next year. I want to make that savings permanent.
What else is in that? What else is in that? Or I actually don't want details about it in the first place.
Our population, but research on women's health has always been underfunded. That's why we're launching the first ever White House initiative on women's health research.
No. The research on men's health has always been underfunded, and still is, and underattended to. Women get all the attention. When it's about gender, women get all the attention over men. For general conditions, that's funded well. Women's conditions, funded well. Men's conditions, ignored.
And benefit millions of lives all across America. I know the cost of housing is so important to you.
Well, not to these people, no. People in this room?
Well, and the Fed acknowledges that. But I'm not waiting. I want to provide an annual tax credit that will give Americans $400 a month for the next 2 years as mortgage rates come down. to put toward their mortgages when they buy their first home or trade up for a little more space.
Okay, so the government is subsidizing what is essentially a bank loan, which means that the banks can just demand a better deal. All you've done there is created a new form of inflation.
And my administration is also eliminating title insurance on federally backed mortgages. When you refinance your home, you can save $1,000 or more as a consequence.
Same thing again.
We're cracking down on big landlords who use antitrust law, who break antitrust laws by price fixing and driving up rents.
You're talking about price fixing, Joe. That's what you're talking about doing.
So builders can get federally financing, which is already helping build a record 1.7 million new housing units nationwide.
Housing units.
Now pass.
Pods.
Now pass and build and renovate 2 million affordable homes and bring those rents down.
You're going to fill them all with illegal immigrants, aren't you, Joe? That's where it says the policy of just giving anyone help with their mortgage is what caused the 2008 crash. I'm sure it's very similar to it, yeah, if not exactly it.
To remain the strongest economy in the world, we need to have the best education system in the world.
Joe, quite a lot of people in your country can't read. In California, especially.
By providing access to preschool for 3 and 4 years old. You know, I think I pointed out last year.
So this is just get the kids, put the kids in state-run facilities earlier. Really?
Coming from broken homes where there's no books, they're not read to, not spoken to very often.
I don't like the books you want to show them, Joe.
First grade. Having heard 1 million fewer words spoken. Well, studies show that children who go to preschool are nearly 50% more likely to finish high school, go on to earn a 2- and 4-year degree, no matter what their background is.
I'm sure the stats don't mean what you think they do, Joe, but how about you let the parents decide that themselves, rather than saying, nope, plucking them out of your home, making it required? I don't know if he is making it mandatory, but it sounds like he is.
Leaders of the Business Roundtable. They were mad that they were angry. I think, well, they were discussing why I wanted to spend money on education. I pointed out to them as vice president, I met with over 182 of those folks. Don't hold me to the exact number. And I asked them what they need most, the CEOs. And you've had the same experience on both sides of the aisle. They say a better educated workforce, right?
So stop importing illegal immigrants.
I come from Delaware. DuPont used to be the 8th largest corporation in the world. And every new enterprise they bought, they educated the workforce to that enterprise. But none of you do that anymore. Why are you angry with me providing you the opportunity for the best educated workforce in the world?
You can't just moralize at the market to get it to do what you want, Joe. It does what it does. Your job is to let it do what it needs to do.
To see that every child learns to read by 3rd grade. I'm also connecting local businesses and high schools so students get hands-on experience and a path to a good-paying job, whether or not they go to college. And I want to make sure that college is more affordable. Let's continue increasing the Pell Grants to working and middle-class families and increase record investments in HBCUs and minority-serving institutions, including Hispanic institutions.
There's a guy there who's asleep. Oh, that was Terrence Thomas, I think.
When I was told I couldn't universally just change the way in which we dealt with student loans, I fixed 2 student loan programs that already existed to reduce the burden of student debt for nearly 4 million Americans, including nurses, firefighters, and others in public service. Like Keenan Jones, a public educator from Minnesota, who's here with us tonight. Keenan, where are you? Keenan, thank you. He's educated hundreds of students. Now he's able to help, after debt forgiveness, get his own daughter to college.
He's not up there, Joe. Joe was pointing up at the stands. He's right in front of him. Joe was pointing up there. The guy was there.
Such relief is good for the economy because folks are now able to buy a home, start a business, start a family.
Don't believe you, Joe.
While we're at it, I want to give public school teachers a raise.
It's not, you're not their employer, or you shouldn't be.
And by the way, the first couple of years we cut.
Exactly, so higher taxes.
Technically is.
Now,
I guess he is, yeah, but
question of fundamental
so higher
fairness for all
taxes.
Americans. I've been delivering real results in fiscally responsible ways. We've already cut the federal deficit. We've already cut the federal deficit over $1 trillion.
Trump had us surf it.
Bipartisan deal
Why can't you do that?
to cut another $1 trillion in the next decade. It's my goal to cut the federal deficit another $3 trillion by making big corporations and very wealthy finally beginning to pay their fair share.
Joe, that's just going to strangle the market more. And also, I don't believe you for a second. All you're doing is making the slightly less big corporations suffer at the whim of the biggest.
If you want to make or can make $1 million or millions of bucks, that's great. Just pay your fair share in taxes.
The idea of fair share is very questionable.
It's how we invest in
Arguably, that means a flat tax.
healthcare, education, defense, and so much more. But here's the deal. The last administration enacted a $2 trillion tax cut, overwhelmingly benefit the top 1%.
No, it didn't,
the very
Joe.
wealthy, the biggest corporations,
No, it didn't.
and exploded the federal deficit.
No, it didn't. He had to surf
Mike
it.
Johnson
They
in the
added more to
background there.
national debt
Uzalu.
than any presidential
Look at
term
Mike
in
Johnson.
American history. Check the numbers. Folks at home, does anybody really think the tax code is fair?
What, the tax code under
Do you
you?
really think the wealthy and big corporations need another $2 trillion tax break?
Everyone should have a tax break, Joe.
I'm going to keep fighting.
Compared to how it is now,
Under my plan, nobody
Fuera.
earning less than $400,000 a year will pay additional penny in federal taxes. Nobody, not one
Nobody
penny.
believes you, Joe.
In fact, the child tax credit I passed during the pandemic cut taxes for millions of working families and cut child poverty in half.
Child tax credits, all that means is that single mothers get paid for being single mothers, Joe. It's not something you want to encourage.
The way to make the tax code fair is to make big corporations and the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Remember in 2020, 55 of the biggest companies in America made $40 billion and paid zero in federal income tax. Zero. Not anymore. Thanks to the law I wrote and we signed, big companies have to pay a minimum 15%. But that's still
Joe, the
less.
reason they pay nothing in federal taxes is because there are programs to reduce their taxes if they do moral things, quote unquote. Get rid of them, most of them. Because that's just government-imposed morality on the market. It's a massive distortion.
Finally,
And then reduce taxes.
pay their fair share.
All Joe's saying here is more, more, more. Feed the beast more.
Private checks, massive executive pay when it's only supposed to be $1 million.
The biggest corporations can afford it.
To be deducted.
Because that's the way money works, inflation. You take the money that's being created by the inflation, one way or the other. Or the biggest can survive. Because it's a relative thing. The rest of them suffer.
You know what the
You just
average
produce
bill is
monopolies
for
doing this.
billionaires? No. They're making great sacrifices, 8.2%. That's far less than the vast majority of Americans
But
pay.
in money, it's much more, Joe.
No billionaire should pay a lower federal tax rate than a teacher, a sanitation worker, or a nurse.
Joe, how about you solve the problem of the Congress earning more than they should? How about you solve the problem of them getting money from insider trading and from foreign groups and from corporations?
A minimum tax for billionaires of 25%, just 25%. You know what that would raise? That would raise $500 billion over the next 10 years. And imagine what that could do for America.
But Joe, why not just raise the minimum wage? Or just print money? What's the problem with that?
Millions of families can get they need to go to work to help grow the economy.
Feed the monster, feed the state more money.
Everyone should have to choose between working and taking care of their sick family member. Imagine the future of home care and elder care and people living with disabilities so they can stay in their homes and family caregivers can finally get the pay they deserve. Tonight, let's all agree once again to stand up for seniors. Many of my friends.
Kamala's been doing it repeatedly today.
Social Security on the chopping block. If anyone here tries to cut Social Security,
I mean,
Medicare, or
otherwise
raise
she'd
the
be on her
retirement
knees.
age, I will stop you.
The only thing Biden will stop is being awake.
The working people who built this country pay more into Social Security than millionaires and billionaires do. It's not fair.
I'm not sure I believe you on that, Joe.
Two ways to go.
Unless you're talking about absolute numbers.
Can cut Social Security and give more tax breaks to the wealthy. I will. That's the proposal. Oh no.
Don't think that's what they're saying, Joe.
Want another $2 trillion tax cut? I kind of thought that's what your plan was. Well, that's good to hear. You're not going to cut another $2 trillion for the super wealthy. That's good to hear. I'll protect and strengthen Social Security and make the wealthy pay their fair share.
Joe, reducing taxes for everyone would also meet your statement of reducing it for the super wealthy. The point is it reduces it for everyone.
Raise prices to
Just increasing it for the wealthy, Joe,
more for less and less.
doesn't solve that problem.
That's why we're cracking down on corporations that engage in price gouging and deceptive pricing, from food to healthcare to housing.
Large part of the reason they do that, Joe, is because of government intervention, if not the only reason. The free market deals with that automatically if you let it, but you're not letting
Put
it.
a hell of a lot fewer, same size bag. Put fewer chips in it. No, I'm not
Because of
joking.
inflation,
It's
Biden.
called shrinkflation. Pass Bobby Casey's
Because
bill
the
and
economy is
stop.
getting weaker because of the way you're managing it. A lot of corporations cannot survive without reducing the quality of the product they're offering. Now, if you want to say it's malicious, that's just not how the market works. You get people being selfish in the market, but that selfishness is modulated by competition. It's the only force that can do it properly.
You get charged the same amount.
Government intervention just loops the government in on that malice, on that selfishness.
I'm also getting rid of junk fees. Those hidden fees at the end of your bill that are there without your knowledge.
I don't believe you, Joe. Given the kind of bills that your party has been passing, hiding things in something that else that sounds good is modus operandi.
Banks and credit card companies are allowed to charge what it costs them to instigate the collection. And that's more a hell of a lot like $8.30-some. They don't like it. Credit card companies don't like it. But I'm saving American families $20 billion a year with all the junk fees I'm eliminating.
What's the downside there, though, Joe? Are you taking control of that?
That's why the banks
Expanding government access?
$20 billion in profit. I'm not stopping there. My administration has proposed rules to make cable, travel, utilities, and online ticket sellers
What's that,
tell you
Joe?
the total price up front, so there are no surprises.
On the surface, that sounds good, but so does a lot of the other stuff you're saying. I don't trust what he's saying there, because everything that we've looked into of what he's saying here, there's evil behind the scenes.
My team began serious negotiation with a bipartisan group of senators. The result was a bipartisan bill.
I do not trust the expression bipartisan. Jesus, what is that creature?
Oh, you don't think so? Oh, you don't like that bill, huh? That conservatives got together and said it was a good bill? I'll be
Rhinos.
darned. That's amazing. That bipartisan bill would hire 1,500 more security agents and officers, 100 more immigration judges to help tackle the backload of 2 million cases, 4,300
Just
more
stop them coming in, Joe.
and new policies so they
Just
will
close the
not
border, Joe. You wouldn't need to do that.
instead of 6 years now.
Just close the border, Joe. Using the massive influx of illegal immigrants as an excuse to expand government control and institutions. Oh, what? The Conservatives don't like that one.
Detection machines to significantly increase the ability to screen and stop vehicles smuggling fentanyl into America. That's killing thousands of children.
And as Verdant said, the border bill he had also sent billions to Ukraine and Israel, which they did anyway.
It will also give me and any new president new emergency authority to temporarily shut down the border when the number of migrants at the border is overwhelming.
Which of course you won't do.
Border Patrol Union has endorsed this bill.
It allows 5,000 a day, Joe, before that can even happen. And you just won't do it.
I know you know how to read. I believe that given the opportunity for a majority in the House and Senate would endorse the bill as well, a majority right now. But unfortunately, politics has derailed this bill so far. I'm told my predecessor called members of Congress in the Senate to demand they block the bill. He feels political win, he viewed it as a political win for me and a political loser for him. It's not about him, it's not about me. I'd be a winner.
But Joe,
Not really.
what the hell? Marjorie Taylor Greene shouting. I didn't hear what she said.
Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how
Well done,
many
Joe.
thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand. But look, if we change the dynamic at the border, people pay these smugglers $8,000 to get across the border because they know if they get by and let into the country, it's 6 to 8 years before they have a hearing.
Just don't let them in the first place.
But
Just close the border, Joe.
only 6 weeks. The idea is it's highly unlikely that people will pay that money and come all that way.
Joe, that's not a great solution. It would be better if that's all you did, but that's not what you're going to do, is it? Just close the border in the first place. They won't get in at all.
To suggest my Republican friends owe it to the American people, get this bill done. We need to act now.
Joe, you are talking about a tiny plaster over a colossal bleeding wound. But it's even simpler than that because you can just snap your fingers and close it. You can just heal it in an instant. Just don't let them in the first place. What, they'll only be allowed to kill your family for 6 weeks? Just don't let them in the first place, Joe.
Politics and pressuring members of Congress to block the bill. Join
Usak,
me.
this is not democracy. Oh, sorry, Democrat. I misread it. My mistake.
Together. But that's what he apparently here's what he will not do. I will not demonize immigrants saying they are poison in the blood of our country. I will not.
I mean, they are.
Families.
But then so is the rigging.
I will not ban people because of their faith. Unlike my predecessor on my first day in office, I introduced a comprehensive bill to fix our immigration system. Take a look at it. It has all these
Fix,
and more.
quote unquote.
Border. Provide a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, and so much more.
Dreamers, you mean the ones that you just talked about who paid to get into the country to be smuggled in?
I know who we are as Americans. We're the only nation in the world with a heart and soul that draws from old and new. Home to Native Americans, whose ancestors have been here for thousands of years. Home to people of from every place on earth. They came freely. Some came in chains. Some came when famine struck, like my ancestral family in Ireland. Some to flee persecution, to chase dreams that are
But all
impossible anywhere
of them
but here in
had a
America.
common European culture, cultural
They all
descent,
come from somewhere.
with the only exceptions to that agglomerated to that culture. That is the American culture. America is not just a place, Biden, you can just throw anyone into. Throw millions of people who don't fit into it, who will act in a way contrary to its goals. Same thing with my country.
Choice. We can fight about fixing the border, or we can fix it.
That's what Abbott is doing in Texas. Abbott is actually solving the problem, and you've been trying to stop him from doing that, Joe. I mean, even the Democrats want someone to fix it. Problem is, Joe isn't going to do it.
Moment in history happened 59 years ago today in Selma, Alabama. Hundreds of foot soldiers for justice marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, named after the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan, to claim their fundamental right to vote. They were beaten, they were bloody, and left for dead. Our late friend and former colleague, John Lewis, was on that march. We miss him.
Which side of that march was he on, Joe? Was he on the Klan side? I mean, he is a Democrat, I assume.
But joining us tonight,
Remember, the party didn't switch. The Democrats just switched tactic, from attack to pander.
both in the gallery and on the floor, including Betty Mae Fikes, known as the voice of Selma. The daughter of gospel singers and preachers, she sang songs of prayer and protest on that bloody Sunday to help shake the nation's conscience. 5 months later, the Voting Rights Act passed and was signed into law.
5 months seems unconnected. You're cheering for repelling Democrat aggression. Jack says with unanimous backing from the Republicans. Yeah, this is not a Democrat victory.
There are forces taking us back in time. Voter suppression. Election subversion, unlimited
They're too stupid to get IDs, Republicans.
John Lewis is a great friend to many of us here. But if you truly want to honor him and all the heroes who marched with him, then it's time to do more than talk.
It's time to let anyone rig the vote. Time to let black people vote 7 times. That's how you honor this dead man killed by Democrats. Freedom to Vote Act. That's the problem, Joe. Foreigners have the freedom to vote in your country because of you. Dead people do.
Another core value of America, our diversity across American life. Banning books, it's wrong.
No books were banned. They were removed from the curriculum which you have talked about changing today. That's all that happened. And the books which were quote-unquote banned, the books that were removed, still available in libraries or online or whatever you want, they were not shown to children. They were exclusively books that were overly sexual, that deceive the children about their gender norms.
Raise the federal minimum wage.
This is a terrible idea, Joe.
Every worker has a right to a decent living more than $7 an hour.
Minimum wage beyond a very small minimum is just inflation.
Also making history by confronting the climate crisis. Not
And attack
denying
small
it.
businesses.
I don't think any of you think there's no longer a climate crisis. At least I hope you don't.
Joe, the initial data gathered to determine that the Earth is heating up is 96% bunk data, because they put the data gathering places in areas that are too hot.
Tens of thousands of clean energy jobs like the IBW workers.
And it benefits politicians and big corporations for these regulations to exist. Also benefits China significantly.
Conserving
So no, I'm not sure I do believe it, Joe.
30% of America's lands and waters by 2030. And taking action on environmental justice, fence line communities smothered.
And what the hell does environmental justice mean, Joe? That's overlaying your racial politics onto the at least partial drift of global warming.
To put 20,000 young people to work in the forefront of our clean energy future. I'll triple that number in a decade. To state the obvious, all Americans deserve the freedom to be safe. And America is safer today than when I took office.
No, it's not, Joe. You just stopped counting crimes.
Murder rates went up 30%. 30% they went up. The biggest increase in
Can't tell
history.
what he's saying.
It was then, through my American Rescue Plan, which every
Can't tell what he was
American
saying.
voted against, I might add, we made the largest investment in public safety ever. Last year, the murder rate saw the sharpest decrease in history. Violent crime fell to one of its lowest levels in more than 50 years. But we have more to do. We have to help cities invest in more community police officers, more mental health workers, more community violence intervention. Give communities the tool to crack down on gun crime, retail crime, and carjacking. Keep building trust, as I've been doing by taking executive action on police reform. And
Yeah,
call
Joe,
for it to be
this
the
is just
law of
blacks,
the
what you're talking about here.
Directing my cabinet to review the federal classification of marijuana and expunging thousands of convictions for the mere possession. Because
This is
no one
crimes
should be
in
jailed
Democrat
for
cities is what you're talking about here, Biden.
on their record.
This is all issues we've gone over, but it's all nonsense.
I'm ramping up the federal enforcement of the Violence Against Women Act that I proudly wrote when I was a senator, so we can finally end the scourge against women in America.
Is there a Violence Against Men Act, Joe? Oh, there isn't? That's interesting. Oh, they're covered by the normal one, aren't women? Yeah, what scourge against women? Who are the victims of crimes, Joe? It's mostly men. Sure, also the perpetrators, but it's different people doing it in both cases. Or is it? In Democrat cities, it's not.
Very soon after that happened, Jill and I went to Uvalde for a couple of days. We spent hours and hours with each of the families. We heard their message, so everyone in this room, in this chamber, could hear the same message. The constant refrain, and I was there for hours meeting with every family. They said, do something. Do something.
So Joe banned guns in an even wider area than where the shooting happened.
That the Vice President is leading the charge.
You're literally making the problem worse. Literally ensuring the problem happens.
Meanwhile, my predecessor told the NRA he's proud he did nothing on guns when he was president.
Guns aren't the
After
problem,
another
Joe.
shooting in Iowa recently, he said, when asked what to do about it, he said, just get over it.
That's not... I don't think that's true, Joe. I don't think that's true.
Stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it.
But Joe, when have you ever demonstrated that you can stop the problem of school shootings?
I'm proud we beat the NRA when I signed the most significant gun safety law in nearly 30 years because of this Congress. We now must beat the NRA again. I'm demanding a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines.
Aren't they already banned in most cases, Joe?
Universal background checks.
Isn't that all really required?
None of this. None of this. I taught the Second Amendment for 12 years. None of this violates the Second Amendment.
Yeah, it does, Joe.
It glorifies responsible gun owners. You know, as we manage challenges at home, we're also managing crises abroad, including in the Middle East. I know the last 5 months have been gut-wrenching for so many people.
Oh, here's the bit I don't really care about.
The Palestinian people, and so many here in America.
I don't know, Joe. Some people care, but not that much. Not as much as the problems at home.
Hamas, as you all know, 1,200 innocent people, women and girls, men and boys, slaughtered after enduring sexual violence. The deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust.
Probably shouldn't put their houses near Hamas then.
Here in this chamber tonight are families whose loved ones are still being held by Hamas.
Yeah, as Riegel says, what about all the preventable crimes against Americans at home? Oh, of course he stands for the Israel bit.
Around the clock to bring home Evan and Paul, Americans being unjustly detained by the Russians and others around the world. Israel has the right to go after Hamas. Hamas ended this conflict by releasing hostages, laying down arms, could end it by releasing the hostages, laying down arms, and surrendering those responsible for October 7th. But Israel has Israel has a added burden because Hamas hides and operates among the civilian population like cowards, under hospitals, daycare centers, and all the like. Israel also has a fundamental responsibility, though.
It's a good question from the ether there, from Jack. If Iran is funding them, then who... Has anyone given Iran money recently?
This war...
Anyone?
Oh, no, it goes beyond that issue.
Has taken a greater toll on innocent civilians than all previous wars in Gaza combined. More than 30,000 Palestinians have been killed, most of whom are not Hamas. Thousands and thousands of innocent women and children, girls and boys, also orphaned. Nearly 2 million more Palestinians under bombardment or displacement. Homes destroyed, neighborhoods in rubble, cities in ruin. Families without food, water, medicine. It's heartbreaking. I've been working nonstop to establish an immediate ceasefire that would last for 6 weeks to get all the prisoners released, all the hostages released. We get the hostages home and ease the intolerable and humanitarian crisis and build toward an enduring, something more enduring. The United States has been leading international efforts to get more humanitarian assistance to Gaza. Tonight, I'm directing the U.S. military to lead an emergency mission to establish a temporary pier in the Mediterranean on the coast of Gaza that can receive large shipments carrying food, water, medicine, and temporary shelters. No U.S. boots will be on the ground. A temporary pier will enable a massive increase in the amount of humanitarian assistance getting into Gaza every day. Israel must allow more aid into Gaza to ensure humanitarian workers aren't caught in the crossfire. And they're announcing they're going to have a crossing in northern Gaza.
I don't care about this part, really.
To Israel, I say this.
Neither of those sides are good.
Cannot be a secondary consideration or a bargaining chip. Protecting and saving innocent lives has to be a priority. As we look to the future, the only real solution to the situation is a two-state solution over time. And I say this as a lifelong supporter of Israel. My entire career, no one has a stronger record with Israel than I do. I challenge any of you here. I'm the only American president of Israel in wartime.
Jack does.
There is no other path that guarantees Israel's security and democracy. There is no other path that guarantees that Palestinians can live in peace with peace and dignity. There's no other path that guarantees peace between Israel and all of its neighbors, including Saudi Arabia, with whom I'm talking. Creating stability in the Middle East also means containing the threat posed by Iran. That's why I built a coalition of more than a dozen countries to defend international shipping and freedom of navigation in the Red Sea. I've ordered strikes to degrade the Houthi capability and defend U.S. forces in the region. As Commander-in-Chief, I will not hesitate to direct further measures to protect our people and our military personnel. For years, I've heard many of my Republican and Democratic friends say that China is on the rise and America is falling behind. They've got it backwards. I've been saying it for over 4 years, even when I wasn't president. America's rising. We have the best economy in the world. And since I've come to office, our GDP is up, our trade deficit with China is down to the lowest point in over a decade. And we're standing up against China's unfair economic practices.
This is all like, yeah, we're aware of the problem. We're going to pretend it isn't a problem, though. You're going to pretend that it's all fine. The US is the biggest economy, but it's not going to stay that way. You're letting China take over.
Japan, South Korea, Pacific Islands. I've made sure that the most advanced American technologies can't be used in China, not allowing to trade them there. Frankly,
well, never mind the $80 billion worth of military hardware you left in Afghanistan. I wonder where that ended up.
Competition with China, not conflict. And we're in a stronger position to win the conflict of the 21st century against China than anyone else, for that matter, than any time as well. Here at home, I've signed over 400 bipartisan bills. There's more to pass my unity agenda. Strengthen penalties on fentanyl trafficking. You don't want to do that, huh? Pass bipartisan privacy legislation to protect our children online.
What else is in the bills, Joe? What else is in the bills?
Harness the promise of AI to protect us from peril.
Let the government have control of AI. What else is in the bills, Joe?
And keep our truly sacred obligation to train and equip those we send into harm's way and care for them and their families when they come home and when they don't.
Is cuckolding, is your wife, is being a cuckold to a different race a requirement for the military, Joe, or is it just optional?
The song Support and Help of Dennis and the VA, I signed the PACT Act. One of the most significant laws ever, helping millions of veterans exposed to toxins who now are battling more than 100 different cancers. Many of them don't come home, but we owe them and their families support. We owe it to ourselves to keep supporting our new health research agency called ARPA-H. And remind us.
Oh, good, more King Quangos.
Big things, like end cancer as we know it, and we will.
End cancer as we know it and turn it into a tool we can use on you. Pure speculation, but you're not going to solve cancer, Joe.
Let me close with this. Yeah.
That's the bit they cheer for.
I know you don't want to hear any more, Lindsay, but I got to say a few more things. I know it may not look like it, but I've been around a while. When you get to be my age, certain things become clearer than ever. I know the American story. Again and again, I've seen the contest between competing forces in the battle for the soul of our nation. Between those who want to pull America back to the past and those who want to move America into the future. My lifetime has taught me to embrace
future is not written,
freedom
Joe.
and democracy. A future based on core values that have defined America. Honesty.
This is platitudes now.
Dignity, equality. To respect
You're not
everyone.
inspiring us, Joe, that you actually believe in these things.
To give hate no safe harbor. Now, other people my age see it differently. The American story of resentment, revenge, and retribution, that's not me. I was born amid World War II when America stood for the freedom of the world. I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania,
Well, a little late.
Claymont, Delaware, among working class people who built this country. I watched in horror as two of my heroes, like many of you did, Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy, were assassinated. And their legacies inspired me to...
Who assassinated King?
A career in service.
Just asking.
I left the law
Maybe
firm
you
to
should
become a
ask.
public defender because my city of Wilmington was the only city in America occupied by the National Guard after Dr. King was assassinated because of the riots. And I became a county councilman almost by accident. I got elected to the United States Senate when I had no intention.
What was your
of
position
running
on
in
blacks back
1959.
then, Joe?
Then vice president, or our first black president. Now
He was half
president,
black,
so
Joe.
the first women vice president.
Who is remarkably unpopular. Kamala clapping for herself. Yeah, she is a bit.
In my career, I've been told I was too young. By the way, they didn't let me on the Senate elevators.
No, what they were trying to do is get you away from power as much as possible.
I've been told I'm too old. Whether
Margie
young or
Tilligreen said
old,
that while she was in this room.
I've always known what endures. I've known our North Star. The very idea of America is that we're all created equal. It deserves to be treated equally throughout our lives.
No.
We've never lived up to
No,
that
Joe.
idea, but we've never walked away from it either.
Equal under the law, equal access to rights, but not equal treatment throughout your lives. That would be ridiculous.
I'm optimistic, Nancy.
God, you're gonna clap yourself apart, Nancy, be careful. Nancy's tits just slide down to the floor.
Isn't how old we are. It's how old are our ideas. Hate, anger, revenge, retribution are the oldest of ideas. But you can't lead America with ancient ideas. It'll only take us back. You lead America, the land of possibilities. You need a vision for the future and what can and should be done. Tonight you've heard mine. I see a future where defending democracy, you don't diminish it. I see a future where we restore
The election, Joe.
protect our freedoms,
It's kind of
not
tough
take
to
them
say you're
away.
for democracy in that case.
I see a future
Joe, you're not going to be in the future.
where the middle class finally has a fair shot and the wealthy have to pay their fair share in taxes. I see a future where we save the planet from the climate crisis and our country from gun violence. Above all, I see a future for all Americans. I see a country for all Americans. And I will always be president for all Americans because I believe in America. I believe in you, the American people. You're the reason we've never been more optimistic about our future than I am now. So let's
you
build
are.
the future together. Let's remember who we are. We are the United States of America. And there is nothing beyond our capacity when we act together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, that was a shameful display of deception and hubris. But much what we expected. His Democrat supporters probably largely actually believe in him, a lot of them, but a lot of these people are just surrounding him because they want the power that he can offer. If most of them probably know that he was way in, or suspect it, but this is how they get power. There were quite a lot of interesting tweets from Trump. So there wasn't a lot for me to sort of like, there wasn't, how do I put it? It was just a standard, like, pro-Biden speech. There wasn't much interesting. There wasn't much different. It was much what I expected. All of his normal talking points, with very little else going on. A lot of the lines he delivered were clearly prearranged. I don't think there was much going on upstairs during the speech. Some people say that he pronounced Laken Riley's name wrong. I don't know, you couldn't tell with Biden because he's always slurring anyway. He did make one or two, or maybe like 5 roughly noticeable verbal slip-ups, maybe somewhere between 5 and 10 maybe. So yeah, it was just a sort of pretty normal Biden speech. This is what they're usually like. Yeah, not much to say really, but see what Trump said. Trump said it took him over 40 minutes to get to immigration, and then he said nothing about it. Well, he said basically that with our policies, we'll make sure that the illegal immigrants can't stay in the country for the 6 months or 6 years it was, whatever he claims is currently the policy. We'll make sure they can only stay in the country for 6 weeks. Oh, that's nice, Biden. How about if you just don't let them stay in the country at all? What? That's the point, though. Why not? You could do it any moment. You could just remove the policy that says, yeah, you let them in, you give them the phone, you give them a gift card, you just let them into the country. You just remove that policy. You just say, like, yeah, the borders are closed. You could just say that in a moment and it would happen. Never mind the people of the country. Oh, well, phew. At least the foreigners who want to kill us are only here for 6 weeks now instead of 6 months or 6 years. Oh, I was worried then. Oh, look, there's one of them now. It's a bit better than it was before, but it's like it's down from 100% bad to like 95% bad when you could snap your fingers and turn it to 0, almost 0. You could just close the border. Why the hell would you do that? That was his big thing on the border during that speech. And of course, as I mentioned, as I predicted, it's obvious that he would. It was no great achievement that I predicted it. He mentioned the quote unquote bipartisan bill supported by rhinos and Democrats, but no actual Republicans. Which not even a lot of rhinos actually supported it. But it would have given it tweaked some of the regulations around the border, which would have essentially produced a path for the president to make the situation worse. That's what it would have done, and that's why it didn't go through. It also contained colossal payouts to Ukraine and Israel, which a lot of people in the Congress or the Senate, whichever it was, also opposed. And calling it the puppies and kittens bill, which includes everyone's brain must be submitted for inspection. Oh, okay. Well, what was that in the puppies and kittens bill? Well, that's just what we called the bill. Of course, it has other things in there as well, which is what they do with all of those. So every single time, any politician, frankly, but especially a Democrat, says you didn't vote with us on this bill, you got to check what's in the bill. You have to check what's in the bill because usually there's something hidden in it, something really bad hidden in it. Trump says, whether the fake news media likes admitting it or not, there was tremendous misrepresentation and lies in that speech, but the people of our country get it, and they know that November the 5th will be the most important day in our nation's history. I wonder if there's any change in polls. We won't be able to see it just yet, but if we have a look at in the next few days, if we see any changes to polls, if Biden's numbers stay flat or even go down, that'd be quite funny. Trump says, he said, I bowed down to the Russian leader. He gave them everything, including Ukraine. I took away Nord Stream 2. He gave it to them. He was a puppet for Putin and Xi and virtually every other leader. I think what Trump's saying there is true about the examples. Trump says, it's over. Trump says, this is like a shouting match. Every line is being shouted. They are. Under Trump, Iran was weak and broke. Under Biden, Iran is rich and funding terror. I think there's probably some truth to that, yeah. I don't know exactly how much. I haven't looked into it in detail, but it has been the policy for some mysterious reason. It's been the policy of many US leaders to throw money at Iran, which I am well informed immediately goes towards terrorism. And that terrorism could be used as a tool to keep in power those tougher and more authoritarian leaders of Israel, like the current one, for whom a war broke out at just the right moment for him to gain in the polls, for him to re-solidify his control. Now, I'm not saying that Israel is directly involved in that, but I think it's to Israel's benefit to some extent that there be a war happening, not to their citizens, but to the collective, to the state. I think it's to their benefit. But either way, I think that a lot of Western powers, a lot of allied powers, a lot of the corrupt establishments in those powers don't mind if Iran funds terror. It's a good excuse to keep the military-industrial complex rolling. So do I think Biden would do that? Do I think Biden's helping to do that? Do I think Trump would prevent that? Yeah, I can definitely believe Trump here. Joe Biden's a threat to democracy. He weaponized government against his opponent. Didn't talk about that. Never happened before. I'm not sure it hasn't. I'm not sure. Has there been an example where a sitting president has used the justice system against their current political rivals, especially when there's no justification for it. Really,
Lincoln did it.
Reagan did it?
Lincoln.
Oh, Lincoln. See, I was thinking that if anyone did, probably it would be him. Real change in DOW adjusted for inflation, so stock market changes. Real change in S&P 500 adjusted for inflation, yep. So Trump doing way better on those, according to the numbers Trump is posting, which I trust his numbers better than the Democrat numbers, for sure. Trump says he made Iran rich. This is why we have the problems in the Middle East. With me, Iran was broke. He is the reason that the Middle East is blowing up. If you just stop throwing money and resources at the Middle East, they're going to have to find them for themselves. And they don't make weapons there. Not like they're made in Western countries. They make scimitars in the Middle East. They don't make sidewinders or whatever the weaponry today is called, to try to take a similar named one. Israel is there as well, so I do wonder, is it worth continuing to send them weapons? Sell them weapons, sure, but don't send them the money to buy the weapons. You know, I said a lot during that about it's your job to let the free market make its choices, and that's tough to apply to something which is essentially on the national level like weapons, but still, if the government were not at the mercy, at the behest, operating at the behest of the military-industrial complex, I think you would have a lot less problems. Generally speaking, where the market controls government, you get problems like this. You get price gouging, as he was mentioning, but his solution to it is just, well, let the government have more control of it, which essentially just means let the corporations have more control of it. All you're doing there is you're passing off authorization for corporations to set prices that their competitors must follow. You're dramatically strengthening monopolies if you do that. And the thing they said about we're going to help people to get loans to buy a new house. Okay, that sounds nice in principle. The problem is that if they're not getting those loans in the first place, what's the reason for that? Is it banker greed? Well, bankers are greedy, but surely they would make money from giving those loans. It's not just they give the money; they would earn money back from the loan if it were profitable. Why isn't it profitable though, Joe? And here to continue my thought on this topic, as he did so well in chat earlier, Wes, welcome to the show.
Hello. Yeah, so a lot of y'all might be a little too old, or if you were old enough to be around, not politically aware back in 2008 and what led up to it, but this is literally the mentality that led to the 2008 crash, the Great Recession, as it was called. The long and short of it is you had Democrats, like the man who was the most responsible for it was a Democrat named Barney Frank, who basically pushed forth a bill. I'm condensing, obviously. There were several people responsible for this, including Joe Biden, by the way, who supported these bills. He basically put forth a bill that put a proverbial gun to the head of every mortgage farm and bank and everything like that, saying you will give high risk loans for housing. You will give these people loans. You will loan these people hundreds of thousands of dollars. And guess what happened? The people who were high risk weren't able to pay off the loans. And of course, because of the wording of the bill, all of those loans were backed with federal money. And because of that, everything, when the bubble burst, everything started collapsing in on itself. It's one of the reasons why auto companies started collapsing left and right. Because a lot of the money that was propping up the auto companies, because they were releasing failure after failure after failure, the money disappeared. And then, of course, Obama, in his infinite goddamn wisdom, decided that, hey, it would be a good idea to give them more federal money. But the other side of this federal money being given all over the place is it gives the government more control over these businesses. It gives the government more influence over these businesses. And so whenever you hear someone like Joe Biden say, we want to give more money to these, we want to give more money, we want to make sure that in your head, translate those random slurs and stutters to, we want to have more control over this area. We want the government to have more control over this area. That's what he is actually saying there. And yeah, I genuinely cannot believe that almost a quarter of his State of the Union address was about other countries. That's my big thing. Like it's just the first 15 minutes was about Ukraine. Oh my God, I can't believe that shit. That shit is hilarious. And then of course the entire middle bit was about Israel. And it's like, bro, what about the rampant crime going on in almost every major city? What about the fact that the National Guard has to be set up in the subways of New York? What about that? Oh, but school shooting. You don't understand the Second Amendment. You can't even spell amendment right now. Like, bro, oh my God. That honestly was a little impressive. I didn't think he was going to be that bad. And you can really tell when the adrenochrome IV starts wearing off. Cause about 45 minutes in, he started slowing down. He started slurring more. He started coughing more. That's when the Addies started to wear off. You know, that's when the adrenochrome started wearing out. That's when he needed another infusion of orphan blood. Because he got his infusion this morning, and now it's the evening. He's got to get that shot in. Christ's sake. I don't know about you, but I'm not a huge fan of the Speaker of the House right now, but he's a damn sight better than Pelosi. And oh man, I don't know if you were keeping track of his face throughout that.
I was having a look at it, yeah. I think he was expressing very, very gently, very peacefully the general sentiment of the Republicans in the room, because he knew half of what Joe was saying was lies.
Yeah, I would argue the overwhelming majority of the American people at this point, like especially when he started going off on gun control. It's like, bro, this is the number one losing talking point for you. And you're going off on it at the State of the Union, when at the same day, the 29th state, South Carolina, just passed constitutional carry. This is the number one losing argument for Democrats right now. And he devoted a whole section to it in the State of the Union. Oh, man. Ridiculously bad points. Because the thing is, I thought he just wasn't going to touch the economy or the border. I thought he wasn't going to touch it. I thought he was just going to glance over it, talk about other things. No, he actually brought up the border.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? You are taking L after L after L after L on the border. Why are you bringing it up? And of course, we all know why. It's because he's a senile old man and he doesn't know where he is half the time. And I just, oh my God, that was bad.
Well, I think bringing up the border was part of the plan. The thing is, like, I don't think they have much else to say during this. So the reason they bring that up is that they did that trap bill where it was clearly not pro-border and it only provided a small amount for the border compared to Israel and Ukraine. But because they did that trap, now they can claim the Republicans didn't do what they said they were going to do, to try and make them look like hypocrites, even though they very much did when Trump was the one in office, except for the rhinos, many of whom supported the bill anyway.
And as you brought up, what else is in the bill?
Yeah.
It's like Republicans, they didn't vote for the I Love Puppies bill that ensured that every puppy gets a nice warm bed and a full bowl of dog food every night. The Republicans obviously hate puppies. And it's like, Joe, that puppy bill ensures your presidency for life and $86 billion to go directly into your bank account every year. Oh, the puppies, though. The puppies. You don't understand. Republicans hate puppies. It was just like the House Every Homeless Person Act that they refused to pass in 2022. It's like, Joe, that bill also forced every American over the age of 12 to get a vaccine booster funded by Pfizer every 6 months until their age 85. Yeah, they hate the homeless, though. It's like, oh my God.
But Joe, that bill required that people give up their homes for homeless people. Joe, that doesn't help the problem.
Well, hold on. It did have that addendum that everyone who makes $400,001 or more a year don't have to give up their homes. Which, how much does the president make every year? Oh yeah, that's right. Do you guys remember that? Do you guys remember that the tax bill that it was anyone making less than $450,000 a year is tax exempt for it. It's like, bro, you make $400,000 a year. You scumbag. Oh my God.
Yeah, the set of Democrat policies amounts to a bunch of feel-good surface ideas, which to someone who doesn't know much about politics seem like nice ideas. It's like you're being nice to people that are down on their luck and you're taking money from people who have too much. But every single one, just like all those cases of alleged police brutality against blacks, every single one, when you look into it a little bit deeper, it has terrible side effects. Or terrible direct effects they just don't talk about. So that's the problem. The Republicans have a harder job of making the case because on the surface, the Democrat policies sound nice. But what it amounts to is it's just whichever tactics the Democrats have, because they're not really policies, they're tactics, which are the easiest to slip by people. And the effectiveness of that is coming to an end. It's gradually reducing over time because there's less and less that people don't understand.
Well, you know, to quote Mark Twain, a lie makes its way around the world twice before the truth has a chance to get its boots on.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be able to just do like creative writing exercises for what you think is true, because you could just say anything, but people will eventually figure out that you're lying, even if it takes years, even if you spend billions on expensive propaganda and you control every institution. Eventually, they'll figure it out.
Yeah, Mofaku, remind me again what happened to Patton in the 1950s. Man, remind me again what he wanted to do and what his plans were when he was running for president and what happened to him. That's interesting. Patton was assassinated, by the way. He died of a very suspicious car crash almost a week after he announced that he was going to be running for office. And his plans to basically wipe China and the Soviet Union off the map when they were still recovering from World War II. So, gotta love that military-industrial complex. But anyway,
it's weird that that they didn't try and do that to Trump early on. I think that was just one blunder, not to underestimate him, and everything else that's happening to them is the result of that.
Well, remember, no one took him seriously until like the very end.
Yeah,
no one was taking him seriously.
Yeah, I think it was the New York Times or something else, their prediction of who would win. It was still 99% Hillary, 1% Trump at the point they were starting to count the votes. So yeah, right until then, they didn't think he was serious.
Oh, the horse-faced lady was on Real Time with Bill Maher, and they were like, who do you think is going to be president? And she's like, Donald Trump. And everyone was laughing at her and shit like that. She was like, no, really. I think he's going to win. And what's his name? The dumb British guy. Doesn't narrow it down. John Oliver. When he announced he was running for president, and Oliver was like, "Do it! I want you to do it. Biscuits and tea, like whatever British people say. I don't speak their language."
Americans don't know what biscuits are. Such a shame. Tragic. Single tear.
You know, and no one was taking him seriously. And, you know, Obama with the oh, you know, we don't have to take these people you know, talking about foolish okey doke. Seriously, you know, like, yeah, is Obama going to be, or is Trump going to be president? Maybe on a skit of Saturday Night Live, you know, like stuff like that. No one was taking him seriously. No one.
He was pushed forward because also, he was easy to beat.
To a certain extent, yeah. But I believe the main reason, like, bro, as soon as he got on that debate stage, he blew everyone out of the water. He didn't need to be pushed forward. He didn't need to be propped up because he did it himself. It's Donald Trump. I mean, this man was lauded as a cultural icon and hero up until mid 2015 when people started taking him seriously.
Yeah.
And that I think is something a lot of people forget. America loved Donald Trump until the cultural switch was flipped, and now he's literal Satan Hitler. It was weird to see it in real time. And it's like, you had people, there's literal video footage of Jesse Jackson calling him a hero of the black community back in the 90s. And it's like, bro, you know, news reports from the 1980s of him, of him basically using market forces to push, what was it, West Palm Beach, I think it is, but a big chunk of the east coast of Florida that he basically owns, you know, for social changes that he wanted and that he liked and things of that nature. And you could say whether or not that's good and bad, that's a separate conversation. But the point is that he did shit like that. He did things like that, and he was lauded for it. Yeah, I just, man, it is freaking weird how quickly that social flip. It's honestly something that I think 10, 15 years from now we should go back and study, because obviously we have plenty of footage about it in real time. Like, what? Because there's obviously something going on there. There's definitely something going on there. But anyway, apologies. State of the Union. Yeah, man, that was. I mean, I don't think I've ever.
It was standard Biden. It was standard Biden speech. But they are full of lies and deception. That's the problem.
I think what I was much more surprised by was how hostile the Congress was. How vocally hostile the Congress was. I'd never seen that before. Not even in the earlier years of Biden. I've never seen that much hostility, and definitely not with Trump. Like, there was a lot more than just the hardcore, like, dozen plus MAGA Republicans. There was a bunch of people calling him a liar, talking back at him, you know, booing and hissing. Oh, that was rough.
Of those not standing up to clap, it was maybe more than half of the room weren't on the ground floor.
Well,
it's a lot of people.
Yeah, but it was more than that. It was vocal. It was vocal pushback when he was saying things, and he responded to it, which also surprised me. Like, oh, you guys didn't like that act? You guys didn't like that act? It's like, that's not a good look, man. That's definitely not a good look.
Trump said, if you get rid of TikTok, Facebook and Zucker Schmuck will double their business. I don't want Facebook, who cheated in the last election, doing better. They are a true enemy of the people. They help facilitate the cheating, but I think that's what it means. That is true. At the same time, the TikTok thing is divisive. I don't have I understand why an administration might want to do that, because it is really an attack on the level of nations in a cultural war. But at the same time, it is uncomfortable for a government to start banning a social media platform. So I'm not sure about that. But weirdly, it seems to be going ahead without Trump. So I don't know. I think just like enforcing or maybe reimposing Section 230, but the basic principle of Section 230, that you choose to either be a publisher or a platform, makes sense, but it's not being enforced. Or something recently, I think one of the Democrats said, which just flew in the face of it. It's like, no, the basic principle of Section 230 solves that problem.
Yeah.
If they get to editorialize, then they are responsible for everything that's on there. If they don't, then they're not.
Mm-hmm.
It's a simple way of dealing with it.
Much like with the southern border, all you have to do is actually enforce the laws that are already on the goddamn books.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do. just enforce the laws.
Excuse me, there wasn't a great deal in that speech that was different than the norm. Like, there's not a lot for me to say that I didn't already say. Most of what Biden included in there is stuff that we've already responded to at length elsewhere. So live, I was just able to, give the basic line on it and then move on, but not a lot interesting. Trump says this was an angry, polarizing, and hate-filled speech. He barely mentioned immigration or the worst border in the history of the world. He will never fix immigration, nor does he want to. He wants our country to be flooded with migrants. Crime will raise to levels never seen before, and it's happening very quickly. Generally true. Trump says he doesn't sign up to Putin. He gave Putin Ukraine. I'm not sure it gave, but there might have been more direct involvement there than we know. I think the corrupt establishment generally wanted and precipitated the Ukraine war, but and Trump just didn't. It's that easy to prevent. Trump says that's maybe the angriest, least compassionate, and worst State of the Union speech ever made. It was an embarrassment to our country. Don't shake his hand. He's been coughing into it the entire night, says Trump.